The Michael Hatfield RE/MAX team presents Real Estate and More.
Bay Area real estate is different than in all of America. And why? What's up with home buyers? What's on sellers' minds? How is the market? And much, much more.
Now, here's your host, Michael Hatfield.
Welcome to the Real Estate and More show, and thank you for tuning in today. We have an incredibly interesting topic today that may affect all of us at some point in our life. Finding one's purpose with assisted living. And to learn more, we have a man who is very experienced in many of the ins and outs, as he is a former executive director of multiple assisted living facilities. He'll talk to us a bit about how they're different than nursing homes and other rehab facilities. And I've known this man for more than 13 years, regard him as a friend, and hold him in very high regard. On the show today, we have Mr. Leonel Morales. He goes by Leo. Everybody knows him by Leo. Welcome to the show, Mr. Leo Morales.
Good morning, Michael. It's a pleasure being here with you.
Oh, I could not do this show without people like you, my friend. Anyway, Leo, I've known you for going on, 13 to 20 years. I'm not sure, but starting with the care of my mother at one of your facilities, you did just a phenomenal job. Tell us a little bit about you as a person, how you got into it, and those kind of particulars.
Perfect. Michael, it's a funny story. I used to work in properties in a pretty large company, and my territory was Alameda, East Coast, the East Bay. I was growing on the company quite nicely, and I was put in charge of new acquisitions. Part of my daily work was going to court, because the new acquisitions had residents who lived for a long time in their apartment complexes, and unfortunately the new owners would like to take control of those old units, refurbish them, and get more money out of it. Business. Went to my wife and I said, I'm done. I cannot do this anymore. So without notice, I took my keys. You remember the old beepers we used to carry like crazy? I went to the owner of my property company. I said, sir, I'm done. No conversation, no nothing. I just did not like that feeling. The good Lord has always been close to us, and within a week, a good friend of mine says, Leo, would you be interested in working with seniors? I said, seniors? I mean, it was all lining up. So this very good friend from Guatemala also said, Leo, there is an opportunity for you to run a community in San Pablo. But I said, I have no experience on it. And don't worry, we will train you. So that's how everything started in San Paulo. Assisted living, it was called Creekside. It's no longer Creekside, I believe. That was ages ago. But that's how I started in assisted living, and it changed my life.
Yeah, well, frankly, none of us want to get older, but it will happen, or there'll be an alternative. So why not make your home a place in a great social environment where you can do things and have a purpose? I think having a purpose in life is really important for anyone, whether or not you're of the boomer image or age, or whether or not you're a millennial. It's important to have that purpose, and sitting around watching TV as an elderly person is not the way to go, but once in a while it'd be pretty neat, don't you think?
It's actually, Michael, that is the model for assisted living. The understanding that a senior person and an adult that has gone through the life and is pretty much alone, living at home becomes a burden because they are so lonely. That is the number one problem, because Usually, the husband or the wife are no longer with them. In many cases, the ladies outlived us for quite a few years. So it is mostly is dominated by ladies, and they become exactly like you mentioned. That TV, that box, it becomes their medium of receiving 99% of the time bad news.
Yeah, for sure.
Very seldom they turn to the weather channel and the storm is coming, but is the bad news that keeps feeding their soul, and that is not good for anybody.
Well, we are actually social animals. We enjoy the get together, the tribe, so to speak, working on projects that have purpose and doing things like that. And if you isolate a person, it's pretty much like you would a dog. I mean, you want to make a dog mean, isolate them, make them lonely, put them in a pen, and then hold the food back, and then you've got that. So it's so important that in the case of assisted living, that there's a distinction between assisted living and nursing homes and rehabilitation.
Yes.
And I have to share with the audience, my mother was under the care of Leo and his wonderful staff for a number of years. Just did a wonderful job at keeping her social. She had her own independence, her own apartment, a little bit of balcony there, which was really nice. She'd go down to the dining room, she'd sing, she'd play bingo, she would chat with people, and that's the difference, I think, between what people think of nursing homes or rehabilitation centers, wouldn't you say?
Oh, it is exactly that, Michael. This generation, remember, they grew up in a very social environment. They were part of that cocktail hour. The ladies put those beautiful dresses and the coiffed hair, and they always look.
Yeah. See my smile here, with the cocktail hour part.
Yeah. It really became a status quo for them to have that social weight. The husband with a martini, right? Like June Cleaver, that perfect marriage in the 50s. It just, that's how that generation grew up. And she worked hard all day in the house, but when the husband was coming, she looked like $1,000,000.
Oh, man.
It was his girl. This guy who went to Europe and fought, or the Pacific Theater. I mean, these guys wanted to be surrounded of beauty, and the wife was the crown jewel or their little castle,
Absolutely.
And to me, that is one of the biggest blessings. This generation truly was the best. What Tom Brokaw said is the greatest generation that allowed people like me to come from Guatemala and be part of this American dream. That's why I feel honored to have the opportunity to serve them with such dedication and gratefulness. It's a great opportunity for anybody if that's what they would like to do.
We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Real Estate Minute with RE/MAX expert Michael Hatfield. Michael, what traits should we look for in selecting an agent?
Look for a deal maker with a positive attitude who will work tirelessly for you. An agent who is adept in multiple offer situations, drafting contracts, marketing and advertising a client's home, is familiar with multiple cultures, experienced in mortgage financing, inspections, and escrow, is a huge asset to his client.
What can you do as a plus for clients?
Your agent is your eyes and your ears, one who works behind the scenes on your behalf. A great attitude, working well with others, and keeping clients' priorities number one is a given for us.
Call 925-322-7775 now to schedule an appointment or complimentary home analysis. For excellence in real estate, call the Michael Hatfield RE/MAX team at 925-322-7775 or go to michaelhatfieldhomes.com.
Now let's get back to Real Estate and More with your host, Michael Hatfield.
But
One of the big big aspects that I found that was really interesting is that you had such a wonderful staff that worked for you. I recall very clearly that if somebody wasn't doing their job as far as maintaining this or that, they would jump in. You had a lady there that was just the most delightful, humorous woman ever, and she was just amazing. I can say her first name. Her first name was Flita. I loved her to death. She was just an amazing, great, kind-hearted lady. And then, not to mention, the real professional, Joanne. She was the medical director. I don't know. She's probably still there.
Yes, they are. Flita is retired, and yes, earlier we were talking about a little bit of the success of any leader. It's not the leader; it's the staff. It's the people that he surrounds with. Flita with her hats. She always wore these hats, and her caring attitude from the beginning. She was our sales director, and she was the tip of the spear. She was sharp, man, and she kept you in check. And all the sons and daughters loved her because she was the face of Atria. They were buying Flita, surrounded by Atria with all the hourly stuff. Joanne was in charge of the care portion, the medication management and all that. Very, very different roles, but without the two of them, it was impossible to achieve the success that I was blessed with.
Absolutely. Before we go any further, would you do a brief explanation of the difference between assisted living and like a nursing or rehabilitation center, please?
Yes, I think that's a very common misunderstanding. In particular, Atria, in Valley View and most of their communities, the approach is a social environment. A nursing home is a continuation after you've been in the hospital. A rehab center is a place where a physical therapist will come and give you a workout even though you don't want it. They need to do it. Their medication, their diets are very, very strict and very medical oriented. Assisted living is a enhancement of your diet. A little indulgence with the cakes, the desserts, but
a glass of wine.
A glass of wine, exactly. There was a
performers.
Exactly. There was a new wave. We created an area called the Bistro. And Michael remembers quite well because I remember that was one of the favorite places for him and his mom. We have an amazing lady that used to take care of the bistro.
Liliana.
They did the paninis.
Yes.
We were thinking of naming one of them because Michael was there all the time. So we were going to call Panini Michael. But anyway, it was so special to see that enjoyment in them. Because again, this generation enjoy a trip to a restaurant with their husband or their friends, and Atria was able to provide that. In a nursing home is a very strict way of, you are with your nightgown most of the time, you are in a medical environment. For example, in Atria, during the meal hours, which is open from 7 in the morning to 7 p.m. The dining room is open all those 12 hours. You show up at 10 after your doctor appointment and you're hungry, we will prepare something for you. Anyways, there is a code that you cannot go into the dining room with slippers, your nightgown, or a bathrobe. You need to be fully dressed. You don't need to wear a two-piece suit. Most of them they do, but you're welcome to come, feeling comfortable. So
Yeah.
it is a great difference.
The social, it's absolutely social. People think, my mother resisted that a lot at the beginning. She says, I don't want to go into a nursing home because her impression or perception of one is different. That's a rehab center normally, but Atria is something else again with the assisted living. I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, we're chatting with Mr. Leonel Morales, former executive director of Atria facilities in Walnut Creek and Lafayette. And these facilities of 300 private apartments are in a big way a social club for seniors. It's like being on a cruise sometimes, and while keeping aging residents safe and giving them a purpose. And I'm going to go on. I'm going to say that there was one time I was having lunch with my mother, and I was talking. I was flying at the time for a major airline, and I was talking about my trip. I went to France, and I was coming back, and I was talking to Mom, and then there was this lady that piped up in the table next to her. She says, I was with United Airlines. I was seniority number 3 at the time, and she was probably the oldest resident in there. I don't remember her name, but she was 103 years old at the time, and she was actually United Airlines flight attendant number 3. And great subjects, and the interaction, I think, is absolutely imperative for people that are of maybe my generation. I don't know.
Michael, it is amazing. I used to take my kids quite often to visit them because they were living history. We have, I remember clearly, an amazing resident who was present in the search for Amelia Earhart. He was an officer in one of the carriers that was looking for her. He was also a Pearl Harbor survivor, participated in World War II in the Navy. These people were, I had a group of ladies. One of them was a nurse, a flying nurse, that took participation in World War II. This is, you talk to these people, and the funny thing is, we did it. Yeah. Here I am. My excitement is running a yellow light, and these kids, they were flying, P-51 Mustangs, and they were flying or in charge of a carrier or a ship or something that is amazing. So our ability to interact with them and bring back just listening to them, it will enrich your life tremendously.
Please remember to go to our new YouTube handle, My Real Talk Show. That's My Real Talk Show at youtube.com, and touch that subscribe button. You can also find past aired shows at our handle, My Real Talk Show, on youtube.com. Wow, it's just incredible. One of the things that Atria Valley View does, and I'm not putting on an advertisement for that, but I'm saying that they have this wonderful assisted living facility that, not just facility, but many, and they operate to the social benefit of the residents. And I got to say that I really appreciate that, and everything that Fleeta and Joanne did with my mother. My mother was one of those kind of people that you were talking about a moment ago, is where, she shows up and she's dressed to the T, lipstick, had her face on. If she couldn't, she would always do this. And then next door to her was Josephine, who was the mother of one of my better friends. And the two of them were just always so delightful. Oh, come on in. And they'd only be going next door. But that was okay, because they had a life. And that is what assisted living can provide in the backside, or the back 9 of a golf course. And that's where we all get at some point, and we want to still have a life and enjoy ourselves. And Atria provided that for our family. Thank goodness.
It's amazing, the little opportunities they had by removing the cooking, the cleaning, the taking care of the house. When your focus is completely on a social enjoyment of life. It was hard for some residents to leave their home. I mean, this is a place where they have the entire lives, but they were so lonely. And then they'd find people like your mom or Mrs. Bertucci, and they were, I remember so well because they were part of the Ambassador Club. You see, we have a group of ladies that volunteer to welcome the newcomers. Because it was hard. It was like your first day in school, you sometimes don't know anybody. But these ladies, man, at the end of that first meal, the entire group was laughing and they was having such a wonderful time. It was just one of those moments. I had many days of a very, very difficult time dealing with issues, But I never ended my day without going into the dining room and just watching the fruit of our work. The laughter, the smiles, the complaining. This soup is not hot enough. If that was my problem compared to what I was dealing with it earlier, I loved it, Michael. It was such a delightful moment to see the life of our resident becoming alive again and having them with a purpose. So
unbelievable.
It was so great.
So one of the things that we need to talk about is they do provide services. And what are those services? It's not a medical facility,
yes,
but yet they do manage medications.
Exactly. Joanne she has a degree in nursing. But because assisted living and particular Atria has the social model, she's not permitted to perform nursing duties per se. We do have a management program for her medications. When believe it or not, the biggest problem with our residents has been arthritis, and they couldn't open their pills. They were dropping them constantly. So medication management is something that really is beneficial. Important. It's so important with a good balance in your diet. Sure. And you take the medication the way your primary doctor is prescribing it, you will see a difference within months. So that is one of the benefits. The second one is the bathrooms. I mean, those bathrooms are difficult areas at home when the resident is by themselves. Over here, there is a caregiver that offers them the security to hold them, to help them wash,
as necessary.
It's so important because, again, this generation, they were so beefy and so, always details. So that security really makes a difference, helping them getting dressed. I remember multiple times the ladies the night before selected their attire for the next day and they laid it on the chair. I can see them doing that for their husbands, picking up the tie, and then she getting her dress ready. Our caregivers the night before helps them do that. Set up their attire for the next day. It's so nice.
Well, one of the things that comes to mind too, I'm sure many of our listeners, is the cost or the expense of actually going into assisted living. And it's not cheap, but generally speaking, it's private pay, and you can pay with your long-term care insurance if you had, and a combination of your Social Security is involved. And then if you had your own home, in the case of what my mother decided to do, she says, sell the home and use the proceeds. She says, I'm not going to live 20 years. So she used the equity in her home home to do this. But
finance.
there's a way to do it if you are really bent on becoming a resident of this wonderful.
Yes, definitely. Flita, going back to Flita taught me so much. She said that she used the phrase, only the lucky ones come here. It was so beautiful there, Michael, and unfortunately, the expense comes with it.
Yeah, it does.
You know, you go to New York and you want to stay at the plaza, you gotta cough the money because the plaza is the plaza, right? So, anyways, the concern of the financing, it is quite difficult because some people feel, wow, this is so expensive. But when you put it in perspective, the portion that helps you recuperate some of that money is the part of the care part. You know, the care part allows you to use your in this case the long-term insurance. But unfortunately, that's pretty much it. The pay of the apartment is not tax deductible, is not affected in any way for your taxes, except the portion of the care.
Unfortunately, we all have to do it. How many employees did Atria have when you were there?
Wow. At Valley View, we used to have 120 approximately, full-time and part-times. It's a 24-hour operation.
Yes, it is.
And then when Atria created what is called the cluster, offering 3 different communities, they were located within 10 minutes of each other. They have created different levels. For example, Atria Park of Lafayette offers you a higher level of services with a little bit more nursing services like diabetes management, injections. We have licensed nurses providing that services to our residents. Valley View is one of the most independent. And then Atria Walnut Creek created the memory care that is extremely. It doesn't look like memory care. It's so beautifully done with walking trails. It is an amazing place for the type of resident that is in the beginning of the memory care situation.
Giving purpose to an older person who may have a different point of view of life is not always easy, but if the life occasion calls for your loved one, it is comforting to know there is much purpose to life in an awesome assisted living environment. We've ran out of time today, and I've asked Mr. Leo Morales, former executive director of the Atria Assisted Living Locations, to return next week to finish our questions. For today, though, thank you for sharing your considerable experience with us. You've been listening to the Real Estate and More Show. Interesting people, topics like assisted living with purpose, and Bay Area real estate.
Please remember to go to our new YouTube handle, My Real Talk Show. That's My Real Talk Show at youtube.com, and touch that subscribe button. You can also find past aired shows at our handle, My Real Talk Show, on youtube.com.
The Real Estate and More Show is podcast on demand on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, iHeart, Pandora, and most major podcast platforms as well. I'm your host, Michael Hatfield. We'll be right back with our next special guest. Stay tuned.
Views and opinions expressed are based on current economic and market conditions and are subject to change. Information on the show provided for illustrator purposes only and does not constitute professional or legal advice. Information from sources deemed reliable, but accuracy and completeness not guaranteed. Michael Hatfield and the Michael Hatfield RE/MAX team have no liability for information discussed on the show. Consult with qualified professionals prior to taking action.